Everybody got their microphone on? We'll wait just a couple of minutes longer to see if Sarah shows up. A couple of minutes here. Dang, everybody got quiet.
Don't know. I thought something was fixing to happen.
There is.
Yeah. Mother since pregnant and sick. John Strange. Oh,
Want me to find him? 'Cause, yeah.
I'll email, call him tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause,
He needs to be there.
oh, yeah.
It's 5:30.
Okay, it's 5:30. I'm gonna call to order the Walhalla Joint Planning Commission and City Council meeting to order. Thank all of you for coming. And at this time, we'll start our presentation. The first item is we're gonna have a short moment of silence. All right, at this time, do I have a motion that we approve tonight's agenda?
Pledge first.
I'm sorry.
Pledge.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the Pledge of Allegiance. Hello. Let's do the pledge. Come in.
Yep.
Why don't you lead us in the
Oh,
pledge?
okay.
Councilwoman Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. I pledge
With
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, back to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion that we approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I don't think there is any. Okay, next item is approval of minutes of the December the 20th meeting. Do I have a motion we approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion as well.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Anybody see anything need to be changed? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There is none. Next item, approval of council and committee report minutes from the January 3rd meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
I'll make that motion, please.
I second.
Motion and a second there. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approval of those minutes from January the 3rd? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is none? We are good. All right, at this time, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to the Planning Commission Chair, Mr. Chris Grant, and the Planning Commission, and they have some, duties that they'll need to take care of.
All righty, first, I'd like to thank you guys for allowing us in with you, having a joint meeting. Our first, thing we need to do is elect new commissioned officers. Anybody take the chair this time, or y'all like me to continue to?
I would recommend that you continue.
All right.
You do such a great job.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't mind doing it again. I guess all in favor of that? Alrighty. Vice chair, Calvin, I don't see a reason you're still comfortable doing it.
Sure.
All in favor of that? Alrighty. I think that's it for that. No swapping seats needed there, huh? Alright, so, next is we'll approve the minutes, from October 3rd and November 7th meetings. We'll start with October 3rd.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman. Approve.
Second.
Approval. Yes. Alright, all in favor of moving forward? Aye. Alrighty, how about, November 7th?
Motion approved as written, sir.
Second.
Alright, all in favor of accepting those?
Aye.
Alrighty, Mr. Mayor, that's all we have.
The meeting schedule,
Oh, yeah. Did you guys have a chance to look over that meeting schedule?
Yes.
It's one every month. A lot of times we don't need it, but it can be canceled. I'd rather have it on the books than not. I make a motion that we go ahead and accept it.
Let's take that.
Alright. All in favor of that? Alright. That concludes our business
good
at
deal,
this point.
good deal. The next item on the agenda, is the discussion, by both the Planning Commission and Council, on the proposed historical ordinance. I spoke with Brandon this afternoon and Celia as well, and we are kinda of the opinion that we don't wanna get too quick on this, that tonight it might be good just to discuss it, get everybody's opinion, let everybody, ask questions, and possibly at the next meeting vote, if that is what everyone agrees to. Celia, would you like to give us a little background on this? Could you do that?
What you have before you is yet another draft. I know November 7th, Planning Commission did receive the initial draft. There were some comments made at that time. Since then, the attorney has been able to have a chance to look over it, as well as I come and looked over it as well. You started to have a red line copy, but I was afraid that was gonna, it was getting confusing for me, much get someone else to read it, so you do have a clean copy. The major changes from the November seventh to tonight's is going to be starting in section 4, in which the November 7th copy had the establishment of a Board of Architectural Review. After some lengthy discussions, because this is a voluntary program, or is proposed to be a voluntary program, and we don't expect it to affect every property within the city limits, we took that out, and we are putting those powers with the planning commission. So section 4 does give the authorization to planning commission, just like you would review any other type of planning designation, long-scale plans or programs, and also just like you approve or oversee and recommend for subdivisions or rezonings. The same thing would be here for historical designation. That initial historic designation would come from the property owner. Again, it's voluntary. They would be the ones to come and say, I want to be on the city's historic register. Y'all would review it. We have the guidelines of what would be required for that outlined in, section 5. Basically, the property description, the history, the significance of that property or a building or a place, some photographs, the zoning information, very basic. And then you would make the recommendation to full county, city council. I knew I was gonna do something, old habits die hard, forgive me. And then city council will be the one to decide, yes, this one meets our qualifications and they are going to be placed on the historic register, or no, and then explain why. From that point, the reason they would come back before the planning commission is if they were going to do some type of substantial change to the outside. Not internal, we're not getting into the internal alterations, but just on the external of the property or of the building, a substantial change. Then that would require a certificate of appropriateness or a COA, and they would then come back before the planning commission, and you would have the authorization to say, yes, that does fall within our guidelines and what we have already established as our standards, or no, and then explain why not. We kept the language as far as if someone has a hardship, they can go to the BZA and request a variance, just like with every other variance request we have within the city. Let's see here. It does give a little bit more detail as far as having public hearings. I know there was some talk at the November 7th meeting about notification of adjoining property owners. We did include that language. And we also made sure that we included language that it does not prevent someone from doing regular maintenance or repair work, and they are still going to be subject to all zoning property maintenance codes. It's not going to exempt them from anything else. I hope that was concise enough, but also covered the main points of this draft, but I'm happy to answer any questions or go into any further depth if there's a particular section that is unclear.
I have one question. What
Yes, sir.
happens if the property owner sells? Does that automatically transfer to the new ownership?
It would be listed, it would be submitted to the Register of Deeds, and so it is going to say where the property regardless of who the owner is.
I'm glad, Kelvin, both of us, we're all involved in this part, are we? I don't wanna step in your meeting, okay. I'm glad you brought that up, because what would so it's voluntary,
It is.
but it's not voluntary for the new person that buys it. And so let's say someone with deep pockets would just go around flipping homes, declaring them each one voluntarily historical, then they can go from house to house to house to house to house and create the historic district that they want, that now is no longer voluntary, it's mandatory for the city.
that, see, all that would run through us. The way it's done now is, and we're gonna know, between us and you guys, we're all gonna know if that's the case. If you start buying 5 or 6 properties and sending, sending the application in, we're gonna know what you're up to at that point. And then it would be up to us to either stop it or allow it to continue.
Somebody'd have to prove that
Somebody would have to approve it,
it was historical,
that
I
it
guess.
was. And before all this takes place, there's gonna be a whole criteria that you have to meet for your home or your property to be historical. Like my home couldn't be historical in my opinion,
Mhm.
okay?
There's not that many either.
There's not that many here in town that could be, really.
So, what's the advantage then? You know, someone mentioned before, it can be advantage to that homeowner. I'm happy to help any homeowner that can better his property, better the value of his property. What is that advantage?
If I'm not mistaken, you guys help me here, but there's
I think
grants.
the bigger advantage is more to commercial than residential. Is that not correct, Sylvia?
It depends on the intention of the property owner.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone wants to go after state or national, historic, recognition,
Right.
then this could be a first step. If it is a business or a nonprofit that is wanting to go after some grants, this could help, prove the need for certain renovations to be done to certain standards. It could be because they want to be able to signify that they have a historic building or historic site, either through a plaque or through, some type of marker, which that's built into this as well, to where just because they want to be able to share with others, the city could come up with programs later on, whether they wanna have a historic tour or some type of, pamphlet that people can go around and look. There's plenty of options down the line. We're not getting to that point right now as far as the programs or anything like that. But for someone who knows the value of having something, declared historic, either for their internal, valuation, or because they're going after a grant, or because they wanna be able to market it as historic, then this is the first step.
So is that the reason why it goes, the designation sticks with the property past owners, because perhaps the government gave them special tax breaks or grants to this with that string attached? Is that why that works that way?
Think of it almost like, I hesitate to say it this way, but I hope this will paint the picture. Think of it almost like an additional layer of zoning. That zoning stays the same regardless of who owns the property, unless you come back before the board and ask for a change. So it's going to stay with property, just like any other covenant. It will stay with it until they come and request, and city council says, yes, we will revoke it, we'll remove it.
But the person
For a
that
valid
bought
reason.
that's buying the property, they already knew that to begin
They're
with.
aware of it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, they know it.
That they have to be told before they buy.
When they go do a title search or search.
No, I
it
understand,
should be
I
called.
understand.
And, in most cities, if you read up on it, most cities, it increases the values of the older homes for them to be on the historic register.
I've got a question just for the businesses itself. So if you own a business on Main Street and say you've got 2 businesses beside you, but you don't wanna be in that, then this doesn't pertain, you just go by the city, the regular zoning that was
It's
given
voluntary.
there.
Totally voluntary.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
And if you do have something that's historical, you have to keep it up.
Yes.
If it goes in disarray or something like that, then I guess it would lose that,
That
to
would
be
up-
determined, or,
That would be up to city council and the planning commission if they are falling behind on their property maintenance, just like any other property
Sure.
maintenance, but, we have an enforcement code for it.
okay.
There's a hardship
Yes.
area in here though.
Yes, there is.
Something you said a while ago about grants, is it just commercial owners of buildings that can get a grant, or can residential owners that are,
It's gonna depend on which agency is putting the grants out there. There are some, I know a lot for more nonprofit and for businesses, but there could be some for just historic homes too. I haven't done the research to see
Yeah, I
yet.
didn't remember reading anything about that, but I thought it sounded like just for businesses and not
We can always
residential.
check.
If you go, Regina, if you go on the National Historic Registry, there's all kind of information, if you go on their website, about the type of grants that are available.
Okay.
And I think you can get some grants, but it depends on what type of work you're doing.
What about city-owned properties like the depot? Would the city actually apply for that?
City council would still have to,
To apply.
whether or not we were able to, just present at the very beginning, based on staff recommendation for city-owned, it would still go through the planning commission and the city council process. It's just that
Just the
you would also
process.
sign off on the application.
It's just the process.
So how do, it mentions in here districts, historical districts, so how does a district volunteer for this?
If the whole, say a block, if everyone in that block were part of the program or wanted to be part of the program, then the city council planning commission recommendation could designate the entire area as a district.
Like Weaversburg, Virginia is a historic district.
But if one person in there didn't wanna be in there, they didn't have to go. They don't have to be, but.
That individual would not, it's still voluntary.
So if, say, the Mill Hill, because that's a historical district. A lot of people have a lot of, close ties to the Mill Hill. So if the Mill Hill, say you have half of it decides it's gonna be historical district, and so they sign up for historical district, and the other half says, well, I wanna be able to, property small, I wanna get the most out of my property and do what I want with it. And so now it's kind of hurting the historical district all around them because now they're not complying. Well, we said we didn't have to comply. But it is hurting that, and you don't foresee that there would be a problem with the half that went for it? I mean, having a problem with the half that didn't go for it?
Now, it's gonna have to have all of those buildings meet the designation for historic buildings. So if it's someone doing a new construction, they're not gonna qualify for this regardless. If it's, if that particular lot or property, say someone, there's nothing there now, it's vacant, and they want to build something, they're not gonna qualify for this anyway. So it's not going to harm them.
So even if everything around that empty lot goes historical, they can come in there and build something that's out of character with the rest of it because they've got the freedom to do that.
As long as they meet zoning
Right.
classifications, just like any other property.
I
You
would,
can't make them build to 50 years plus standards.
I'm with you. So I just find it implausible that the rest around that all went this historic district won't be leaning on that person and maybe even a lawsuit to see that person
They wouldn't
put
have
up
any,
with.
They wouldn't have any.
they wouldn't
they
have any grounds to sue.
Any legal grounds.
You'd
to
hope
sue.
not. You'd hope not.
Not the way this is written.
Yeah, not the way this is, because it's totally voluntary.
I'm just so concerned about people's personal property rights. And I'm fine. Historical for your house, you wanna do historical all day long, that's great. But let the guy next door live his life. And if that's how it goes,
Yeah,
That's
how it
it's
is.
that's how it goes,
That's, that's the whole voluntary thing.
okay.
And it's totally up to you. If you wanna wear a blue shirt tomorrow and I that's your prerogative.
Yeah,
It's voluntary.
I hope it works
No
that
different.
way. I hope it works that way.
There are historic districts around the nation that still has new development within that historic district. The district is historic, but not every property within it.
Yeah, but they make them, generally, if I'm not mistaken, they make them conform their new building to the appearance of the district.
Not as many cities I'm thinking of.
Well, maybe not, but, you know, I had mentioned when this came up, was it November? I've worked in the historic district in Seneca, and it put a burden on the homeowner we were working for to accomplish her work. Just the fact that it was in this thing, and she didn't have much money, and yet this is a burden put on her time-wise and expense-wise. And that's what I'm really nervous about, because we are a working class town, and the charm of this town is the people in it, is that the people look out for one another, and they're not here complaining about their neighbors. They're here understanding that everybody's trying to work and make their needs. So if you got a trailer pulled up and alongside your house, well, they figure that's got to happen because you're a working class man and you don't have a lot of room and you can't build all these shelters. And so people do it. But if it just always seems it's a slippery slope. You start down this slope, and then it's next, and it seems fine now, but it's next and next and next until pretty soon the working class people are required to do things that they can't afford to do. And I'm just so leery of that happening.
Didn't someone say a little bit ago that for Walhalla, most of it is gonna be commercial? Did somebody say that? No?
As far as the historic district,
Right.
I'm sorry,
Most of the buildings are in Walhalla that are historic are commercial and not residential, is that correct?
there's not very many historic houses in Walhalla anymore. They've all been torn down.
Which is a shame.
It's unfortunate,
It
but
is.
that's what's happened.
So really that, probably wouldn't be a problem, I wouldn't think, 'cause there's not that many residential.
Mhm.
That would pass being
I hope.
historical.
I hope.
Yes, sir.
I wanna read section 5 right quick. B says the historic property register. Inclusion on the city's historic register shall be voluntary and will require the approval of the property owner. So it's written here. The commission shall, through the city community development department, accept requests for historical designation and the inclusion on the city's historic register. So Grant, what you're saying, if I start feeling like that and I'm getting pressured, then I'm gonna get me a lawyer, cause I'm gonna do what I want to on my land. That's what,
Yeah, but you, Dave, you and I both know, you're a working man, you're not gonna go get a lawyer.
prior to the commission and recommendation of the historic district of historic property to the city council for designation, the commission shall compile a report for nomination consisting of a physical description, a statement of the historical culture, architectural, and aesthetic significance, a map showing the district boundaries and zoning classification of individual properties, therefore showing boundaries of individual historic properties, and representative photographs. Properties of district except for inclusion on the city's historic register are eligible to apply for city plat or marker detailing its significance. Any fees associated with the plat and or marker shall be set by the city council.
And Grant, I hear what you're saying on property rights, and I'm not wanting to take anybody's property rights. But the people that own historic buildings also have property rights. If they want to designate their property historic, why shouldn't they be allowed to?
I agree.
So
Let them
it works both
do it.
ways.
Let them, is what I'm suggesting. Let them designate it historic. When it's sold, let the new owner designate it what it wants to, he wants to
I don't
designate
think
it.
you can do
That
it
ain't
that
how it
way
works.
because of the reasons.
Yeah.
The-
And then
the
when it comes to a
grants.
district,
Now, they could probably come back to us and request that their property not be on
I don't
this.
know, but
I
the-
don't know that.
I don't either, but the
But if-
buyer would certainly know it, and if he didn't wanna buy a historic property, he's got the option to buy something
That would
else.
have to be disclosed at closing.
no, I understand that. I'm not arguing that thing, that point. Say we run into hard times. Say we hit depression. And now say Danny's house, he's only got so much land around his house and he's planting corn in his front yard between his house and the sidewalk. Now, he's designated that historical, he's not gonna be allowed to do that. But say he needs to do that.
That's up to him.
Well, then we're gonna
As
say,
a
get the
plan-
corn out of your front yard.
Does it say that in the ordinance, that you can't plant corn in
Oh,
the front
okay,
yard?
okay,
I
if
don't
that's
think it
how it
does.
is.
I mean,
I-
here's the thing, we have,
Probably not in the city.
there's one that comes to mind with me, was farm animals. All right?
Mhm.
Inside the city limits, unless it's a floodplain, you can't have farm animals. It's in black and white.
No, you can have farm animals. If you get 2 acres or more, you can have cows, you can have horses. I've
One
read-
animal per acre.
Per
Yeah,
acre. I
yeah,
think.
you can have 'em.
And it's gotta
You
be.
can have farm animals.
Okay.
In
So-
certain
In
districts.
certain
Yeah.
zones, certain
Yeah.
things, right?
Right.
It's no different. We set that. The planning commission suggests it to you guys, and then it's up to you guys to set guidelines and boundaries of what can be done and what cannot be done. But if we don't have if we don't have this ordinance, if your house is, let's just say 300 years old, I don't think that's the case in town, but it could be. If your house is 300 years old and you want it to be deemed historic, if we don't have this ordinance in place, you can't do
You
that.
can't do it.
So you're costing yourself in that instance. You understand what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I think you can deem anything historic you want anytime.
But not through the National Registry, bro.
Okay, so if
But
that's
if we
what it
don't have
comes-
this, then the National Registry's no good to you or to us.
then I would suggest, I mean, we're just discussing it.
Yeah, right.
And I would suggest the historic district wouldn't be included in this if we're talking individual properties. And let individual properties, people be able to do that with their individual property.
That's what it says.
No, it's got historical district
That's,
all
But
through
that
you-
it.
was
but you
explained
don't-
30 minutes ago.
You
and
don't,
the
you don't
district is-
have to
if it-
have a historic district
Yeah.
per se. It's if a group of owners want to have it, it's voluntary again. It's not
So let's take the
created
block that
without them
Councilman
volunteering.
Underwood is on up there in his business, his wife's business. If everyone in that block chose to apply to be historic, okay, everyone, then we could deem that block as a historic district. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But if 2 people or 1 person decides, I don't wanna be in that, it could still be a historic district, just their property would not be historic.
They don't get the benefits.
They don't get the benefits, right?
Okay, sounds nice, I think that's not how it'll work out in real life, but that's just my opinion.
There again, that's up to us. It's only as strong or as weak as we make it.
That's right, that's true.
That's why we're here, to serve all those people out there.
Yeah, that's why we should be here.
Any other questions on this? Celia, any other comments you can think of? Like I say, this is not being put to a vote tonight. It's a discussion.
I would say I like the idea of a plaque, cause I know a lot of people have pride in their ownership of their house, and if they have a plaque by their door that their house is historic, I think that's great.
I just want to make a comment so I can make sure I have clarity. So this ordinance that we're reviewing is really just to establish something that has not been established before in our city, just like the food truck ordinance. I'm just taking my time back in the planning commission. I know it was new. We didn't know what to expect until we actually put it into enforcement, and then we started seeing, oh, we need to look back at it, let's review it, let's make some changes. So I hear what you're saying, Grant, so that's why I'm also, when it's something new, it's just something new. We have to just address it when we start seeing some areas that need to be addressed, when it becomes a problem. So when we have this ordinance, it's gonna establish am I hearing correctly that the planning commission will be the members who will be it will go through that process just like they do when they send us ordinance, like the food truck ordinance? Okay, so we're not gonna have to establish a new committee for this? Okay. Because I was reading along the lines of the powers of that, so, okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Good, yes, sir.
Okay, well, we appreciate you guys coming and meeting with us tonight and kind of going through this, and I'm sure Celia's gonna be back in touch with you, and y'all probably will take it up at the next meeting, I would assume. And when Brandon's back with us, I'm sure he'll decide how we're gonna go from there. All right, at this time, we're gonna take a brief recess, to allow these folks to, move to another chair where they can stay with us, or if they need to go, they can certainly do that, but we'll take a brief recess. Directed to council per City Ordinance 2020-17. Is there anyone that would like to speak to council tonight? Come on now. All right, hearing none, we will move forward. The next item says administrator comments. Mr. Burton, do you have anything?
He didn't leave anything.
Okay. Celia, do you have anything else?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, we will move right along to resolutions, proclamations, ordinances. There are no proclamations, and we do not have any first or final reading of resolutions. Now, we have the second and final reading and public review of ordinance number 2020-17, no, excuse me, I'm sorry. 2022-14, is that right?
Yeah. Yes, that's it.
All right, and if anyone would like to comment on this ordinance before we take it up, we're certainly welcome for that.
It's what it is some money we're putting back into the budget that came from a police officer that transferred out, that the new company that took him has to pay back to the city. So that's what it pertains to.
They paid us what they owed us for his
For
training.
his training.
And we're putting that back in the budget.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions or discussion on this ordinance 2022-14?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for that ordinance 2022-14. Issue amendment number 1 to amend the 23 budget docket and other matters related thereto.
I understand. Form of a motion to approve.
I see.
Second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of approving this ordinance?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't think there is any. I'll get that one out of the way. All right, the next item that we are to discuss is the purchase of a sanitation truck.
If I can, I'd like to have the floor for a second, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mayor. I talked to Brandon today on that truck that I'm sure you all seen the email he sent us on this smaller chassis that Russ had found, and actually he has located another one that's closer. It's a little heavier chassis, and it's actually less money. So, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to table this discussion until our next meeting, and he's gonna bring all us that new information.
Okay, motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I think the issue here is this was a rear load truck, that would require the driver
Yeah.
to have to get out and, roll the cart and do it
I
individually.
had questioned that
versus-
problem, there's a lot of advantages to this smaller truck. For the big advantages is it doesn't require a CDL driver.
That's huge. That's
And,
huge.
it'll fit down some smaller streets.
Yes.
When we have events in town, it's ideal, cause we can drive down the streets and load the barrels and empty them and keep on going. If we could find a side loader like that, it would be ideal,
Mhm.
because then they can run the routes if they had to on the street without having to get in and out of the truck.
Could use it for lots of
A
different.
lot.
Do they make a side loader that wouldn't require a
I think he
CDL?
was looking at that
Mhm.
on this, after that discussion today. That's what Russ was looking to get more information on this truck he found, I think, in Easley. So we'll find that out in committee night next month.
It would certainly be worth putting off to
Absolutely.
the next
yeah.
meeting, see what we
Absolutely.
can find out. Any other questions on that? All right, we have a motion and a second to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't think there is any, so we've tabled that. Under executive session, there's none proposed, and I don't know of any reason we need one. I'm gonna skip mayor comments. Do I have a motion that we adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your time. Thank all of you for coming too.
Oh, yeah.